I was going to win Ironman, and I was going to do it by training the hardest, and I was going to train the longest. And of course it didn't work, right? And it doesn't work for anyone. So you got to train smarter. And then cross training is kind of part of that overall intelligence that you're adding to your program. And it kind of comes back to, it's a whole lot more enjoyable when you do have this.
Welcome to the Athletes Compass podcast. Each week, renowned sports scientist and founder of Athletica AI, Dr. Paul Laursen, athlete, coach, and sports scientist Marjaana Rakai, and coach and cyclist Paul Warloski discuss training, racing, and improving your health and fitness. Get ready for your journey to peak performance. Hello and welcome to the Athletes Compass podcast, where we navigate training, fitness, and health for everyday athletes. Today on the Athletes Compass, we are diving deep into something that research shows can improve your aerobic endurance, cut your injury risk dramatically, and keep you mentally fresh while everyone else burns out. It sounds like caffeine. No, it's not. This is something that might just be the missing piece in your training puzzle. We're talking about cross training, and no, we're not talking about throwing in a casual bike ride or swim when you feel like it. We're talking about strategic, science-based cross training that actually makes you faster, stronger, and more resilient in your sport. From rowing machines to cross-country skiing, from swimming pools to elliptical machines, these aren't just recovery tools. They're performance multipliers that research proves can directly transfer to your cycling, running, or triathlon performance. First of all, thanks to Kimber for suggesting this topic. Once I started digging into the research, a lot of questions popped up. And the first one is not really a question, it's kind of a statement. I'm going to suggest that strength training shouldn't really be considered cross training. That's my statement, and we're going to debate it at first. Since it's I look at it as an integral part of endurance training. It's not sport specific, obviously, but I just think it's so important that it's part of the deal. What do we think? Let's just start off with that discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Like strength training is not cross training. I agree.
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think it's semantics at the end of the day. For me, it's bread and butter. Like the science is so clear that you need, strength training in your endurance program, but it hasn't always been that way. So, for example, I'm contributing to Tim Noakes's Lore of Running book, right, in the 5th edition. And look, he hardly has any strength training mention. And that book was published in 2004, but we're 2025 now, right? So we're 20 years on. And it's just well known now that strength training is part of an effective program. And, we know why it works too, right? So you can say you have a certain VO2 level that you can run at, right? Certain amount of oxygen uptake, you just clearly run at that. But then the economy, how economical you actually will be, is completely influenced by the stretch shortening cycle in the muscle, like how it kind of like MJ and I would love to kind of call it pop. Like, how's your pop factor today, right? Well, your pop factor will go up if you're doing strength training. So that's a big one, and that's why whether you want to include it as cross training or not, it's kind of semantics. Doesn't matter to me, but it needs to be part of your program if you want to optimize.
I just got off the phone with a gentleman who does a lot of brevets, those 400 or 600, 800K rides. Paul, you're familiar with this with your Ride Across America kind of thing, but he was thinking a strength training program was just doing some leg work. And it's like, no, you need to, stabilize your whole upper body because you're on a bike for 15, 16 hours straight. And so that needs to be part of what you do just to be able to make sure that you can finish the ride. MJ, you're a big proponent of strength training too. Do you consider that part of cross training? I mean, how do you look at it?
No, I think it should be in the weekly program as one of the cornerstones for any endurance athlete, any athlete, but especially as you get older or like you do long distance events. Some of the reasons that Prof already mentioned. It's not cross training to me.
Yeah. All right. So the idea of, when does the principle of specificity trump the benefits of cross training, and when does it not? So if we're in base versus race phase or the off season, when should that specificity be the determining factor?
Well, you need to have some level of specificity, right, in your training. There's no question about it. So, and I know, MJ's doing the Northman, the huge event, right, and she's really got to think about what all the key pinch points are going to be in that race when she's backing the truck back, to reverse engineering her training as she moves towards that. And there's a lot of elements in that race, right? And she's got to develop the neuromuscular strength to handle those various different elements. And whatever you are targeting, you've got to be kind of the same thing. And so for example, I'll go back to my daughter, and she's a swimmer. She's 15. She does a butterfly and freestyle, and amazingly, she's like third in the province for all high school kids, and she does 2 swims a week, and that's unheard of. If you know swimmers, they're notorious for doing these, training 13 times a week, morning, afternoon, right? Big Ks, and she's done it on 2 swims, 2 1-hour swims a week. But you see behind me here, if you're on YouTube, you see the gym. So she's in the gym as well. So the specific elements of the gym is she's doing pull-ups, right? So you think about the fly, pull up, right? So she's very good at doing various different markers of the pull-up. So there's and the other interesting element of this too, she's also looking at the club records on the wall, and she's targeting those club records all time. And the person that she is targeting is wound up being a Canadian representative in cross country skiing. And MJ will tell us that cross country skiing and the polling is also excellent for the if she's going to be fly or freestyle. There's just think about all of the neuromuscular contractions and targeting that you're getting in that whole upper body as you're going through the whole polling. I've watched cross country skiing. It's amazingly challenging from that whole perspective. So yeah, my 2 cents, long-winded, but
I mean, the closer you get to your race, the more specific training you want to do. Say you have a triathlon in June, you don't want to go on let's say, ski trip in May, right? You want to keep that specific training towards your race goal. But if you think about athlete development, you want to have that broad base as you develop for your daughter, for example, or for my kids. I've wanted to give them different experiences from different sports so that they develop this general athletic ability. Now, what happens when they pick their sport or when we get older and just keep doing the same old, same old? I think it's wonderful to live somewhere like Wisconsin where you have actually seasons. So, or Revelstoke where you can ski for a few months and do these different things, because it naturally gives you opportunity to do other things than just swim, bike, run, right? If you're a triathlete, or for example, runner, as you age and you always keep running and running and running, it is, I would almost say that most runners would benefit from taking 2-3 months break from running and just do cross training, not just mentally, but giving those running legs a little bit of a break. And that's what I miss, living in Texas, is that I never get to take that long break. But when I was a skier in North Finland, we would run during the summer, bike, hike, and roller ski. And then I barely ran at all during the winter, so it gave me the break from pounding of pavement or whatnot.
Well, I just thought, we, in the last episode, we introduced the AI coach that we now have as a tool for all of us. And I was, this is a challenging question a little bit. So I thought, well, why don't we ask the AI coach to see what it thinks, right? So it says, Kimber, that's an excellent nuanced question. Here's how to navigate specificity versus cross training throughout the year. During the base and general preparation phase, cross training is highly valuable and allows you to accumulate that aerobic volume, strengthen supporting muscles, reduce monotony, lower injury risk, and continue through mild niggles or continue training through mild niggles after heavy sport specific sessions. Sports like cycling, swimming, cross-country skiing, rowing, strength training support endurance and general strength and robustness, contributing to broad foundational fitness without the repetitive load of your primary sport. So I think that's pretty good. Good info. And then, of course, during the both the build and the pre-competition, I won't go, it's very extensive, right? But it's saying now there's more, here's the phase where specificity trumps the cross trainings, kind of what MJ was saying, right? The closer to race day, the more beneficial it becomes to focus, limited training time and recovery on your actual, or it becomes important to focus on the actual sport or the event. So I think that's pretty much kind of common sense. So in summary, early, use more cross training. Late, shift majority to sports specific training as the event nears.
So the AI coach, partially answered my question. What I was going to pose was, what is the value of doing? I mean, are we getting value aerobically, anaerobically, muscularly, physiologically, from doing cross training? Is rowing, for instance, going to help me with my cycling?
Yeah. I think it says, well, it says use cross training judiciously for recovery, injury prevention, or maintaining conditioning if direct training isn't possible. So say, in the context you just said for the rowing for cycling, if you were traveling, Paul, and you went to your local hotel and there wasn't a bike there, but there was a rowing machine, do a rowing erg session would be fantastic. And certainly you can always use that for various conditions. So certainly in the rowing context, I've given this story before, but Mahe Drysdale, the two-time Olympic gold medalists, both the London and the Rio Games, he trained 50% on the bike because he could not train on the rowing erg because he had a back issue from an accident on water, and he won the Olympics using 51% cycling. So yeah, there's sort of a time and place and a context where cross training really, and especially cycling in the context of some of these other sports. Niels van der Poel is another great example, right? We know the Niels van der Poel story. This is the Olympic world record holder in 5,000 and 10,000 meters speed skating. And he also, just like Mahe, he used around 50% of his training in cycling. And again, that's anti the sort of specificity, but it's supplementing. And of course, it makes sense from a scientific standpoint because he's trying to add mitochondria to the to the muscle bed in the quadriceps. Whereas with it's I'm not a speed skater, but I'm a cross country skater, and it gets very difficult to hold. You can imagine it gets very difficult to hold those positions and those high torques, high tensions for the same sort of length of time that you could do the same sort of cycling work, right? Where this guy was notorious for doing 8 to 10 hour bike rides and then hit sessions accordingly. So anyways, a lot of nuance there.
Another nuanced answer is the more technical your sport is, like swimming or cross country skiing, the more you want to keep that specific training around at some level, at least throughout the year, right? Because you don't want that technique. Like swimming is so much about the feel in the water.
Yeah.
And skiing as well, like especially if you haven't learned it as a kid.
Yeah.
It's so so technical that you don't want to lose that. So you want to kind of like keep it going year round.
Yeah.
Or you face that you need to spend a lot of time getting that technique back.
So true. So true. I learned so much from my daughter, just talking to her about her performances and whatnot, and just her own intelligence and insight is it kind of comes through, and she really helps to educate me. But she says that just how much she gets out of sculling and technical
Mm-hmm.
work, and that it's really like she knows that the feel she develops in the water and the high level of sculling and technique work that they do is just so instrumental to her being able to grab water and pull it through, right, and get that purchase ultimately on the water. So again, yeah, great point, MJ. Well, for me, I get for my cycling, I get this almost this recruitment factor out of it. So if I add some decent level of squats on into my strength training routine, I almost feel this transfer when I'm doing the hit sessions that you run on Velocity, MJ, where you're doing 30-30s or whatever, right? I feel like I can just grind that little bit extra, right? And I got a little bit more reserve, I sort of feel as well. So I sort of feel that transfer. I don't know, but that's what I feel.
Yeah,
Mm.
for sure.
So I've got to Mariano's point, I've got an athlete, Craig, who is on Athletica as well, and he's training for an ultra in New Zealand in February, and the program has him doing a lot of volume, running, but he's 60 years old and it's adding up. So we've been shifting some of those sessions to either runs or to either walks or bike rides just to build the extra volume and make sure that he gets some of that adaptation, but without all the training stress. Do you think that there's a minimum effective dose of specificity that somebody has to hang on um, to keep their skills, to keep their adaptations going?
Yeah, definitely. There's some level, but where that is,
Yeah.
I just hard to know. So interesting. I'm having this talk with Tim Noakes actually because we're trying to. He's wondering the question like how if you want to do a sub 3 hour marathon, what is the minimal amount of Ks that you need a week, right? And he was thinking it was up in around 120, and then I showed him the Hit Science chapter for running that was written by Jamie Stanley. And Jamie Stanley talks about his own personal case study where he did a 2:32 marathon on 80 kilometers a week. Of course, it was very specific, right? When he did those 80 kilometers, a lot of it was very targeted strength training work, cross training with cycling, and then also hit training, of course, that was very targeted and specific. So I think whatever your context and what you're targeting, and again, I could not. I was just blown away with the speed of my daughter in the. Sorry to keep going back to that, but just like with her
Mm.
fly, she had 2 swims a week, and she's going. She went 31.1 for 50 fly, right, at
Wow.
15 years of age. And so she's moving real quick off
Yeah.
two a week, off two sessions a week. That's really weird, right? So
Minimum effective dose.
yeah, minimum
Yeah.
effective dose. Yeah.
Like why grind out those 13 times in the pool when you're 15 if you can do, if you can do it with less?
Yeah.
I mean,
Think of the freshness and the health that you get back as an individual when you're
mhm,
doing that, right? So
and
it's a different
joy.
mindset.
Do you think that your daughter, just to continue on with her, had to learn a certain amount of skill? Because, butterfly is such a high skill movement. Um, that she had to learn the skills in order to be able to train as little as she does.
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind
Yeah.
of like the sculling, right? But
Yeah.
she's a sharp cookie, so she's learning fast. And like let's be honest, she's also very gifted too, right? You look at her and she has the swimmer body. She's just got these long limbs and like a Summer McIntosh, that's a famous Canadian swimmer. Those who don't know, is she kind of shaped like her, so she's long and she's getting good. She goes through the water like a pencil, so her hydrodynamics are really good relative to who she is. But then of course she puts all the other sort of stuff in place. So she's like the technique, like you said, but then she's also in the gym too. So she's got strength, and then she grabs that purchase with that. So yeah, it all makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So what markers show that cross training is adding fitness rather than just swapping fatigue, like HRV or RPE or max power pace? What can we look at?
Performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And feel. I would think, like, if I think if it's working, you will know intuitively that it feels better, and all these kind of, and that's kind of wishy-washy, I know, but it's like, and look in your sessions, look in your key sessions, have a look at those, and you should see some level of transfer, and it might not happen overnight, but look over consecutive weeks, and you should start to see a little bit of a nudge in your numbers. And this is kind of what I was going, where I'm seeing the squats transfer a little bit to my my hit sessions on the bike.
Yeah, for sure. I keep thinking like cross training and injury prevention. We know strength training, obviously. We're not talking about strength training as cross training as we started with the podcast, but doing other things and the minimum dose, it's really hard to say because it depends on the person, right? But I'm just thinking, if you can keep yourself injury free, like that's the most important thing as an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Stay injury free, stay healthy. If you enjoy doing cross training, say for example you enjoy playing a basketball with your kids or whatever, you enjoy going for a swim as a cyclist, or you really enjoy cross country skiing during the winter and you live somewhere, if you're lucky enough, you live somewhere where there's cross country skiing, I don't think you should think too much about how many times you do the alternative training. Like, go and do it because time flies by. Life is short. Like, if you enjoy doing another sport, go do it. And don't like, worry too much about how much you're doing it, because it's always so good for you regardless. And if that helps you to stay injury free, enjoy the sport, and like, not take it too seriously. That's just positive, right? Just go do it.
Those are wise words, MJ. Where'd you get that from? That
So well said. I mean, I think that's kind of the point right there is, cross training is valuable, but it's also something, if you like to do it, it's beneficial. It's going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
and if it especially helps clear your mind. Do you think that there can be technique carryovers, between the different disciplines? For instance, one of my athletes is training for the Berkey, the cross country ski race. His time on roller skis is limited, and on skis because we haven't had snow yet. But I'm having him do side lunges and curtsy lunges and bounding plyometrics. Do you think that kind of thing helps?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like, think about the profile on Berkey. There's like the hills are not super long, but it just keeps going on.
They're relentless.
50K, like it's just relentless. The last, what is it, 10K, it's flat, but you have to get to that like last 10K. So anything that helps your athlete to lift their body up those hills repeatedly, I would say, like, strength training. Is he doing classic or skate?
Skate.
Yeah, so exactly. So those side to side hops and lunges and all that is super good. And then add some 30-30s
Yeah, we do that. Yeah, yeah, just to keep his heart, and hopefully, he'll get out on the roller skis too. But his weekends are cycling. But um, what do you think would be some good kind of go-to pairings for cross training, for rowing for cycling, or skiing for runners? I mean, what do you think would be good double ups for different disciplines? Like for triathlon, for swimming, let's try that. What would be good for that?
Skiing.
You're going to say
Cross-country
skiing for
skiing.
everything, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah, Paul. I mean, like cross-country skiing is like the best thing,
It is.
right? For anything.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And again, only because we know the local cross country skiers hold the records for swimming in here in Revelstoke. They're on the board, and it's a perfect transfer. I've seen it here.
Well, yeah,
And
because you're using your entire body, right? Like
mhm.
you get all that physiological benefits of using your whole body. So when you go to any other sport after that, it's
Yeah,
it's a walk in the park.
yeah, for sure.
I would say if your cross training has an element of risk and injury, then you might want to, keep it limited.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you don't want to get injured cross training,
Yeah.
especially if you're close to your race.
Yeah. I feel like we have kind of touched the surface of cross training in this episode, in terms of we've identified that there's a value in it. We've identified what the value is. We've identified that if you enjoy another sport or another activity, to do it because it's good for us. Is there a point at which we're doing too much cross training and not enough of our sport? And again, how do we know? Or does that still come back to that minimal effective dose?
I think it does. Yeah, we
Yeah.
probably don't know how low you can go yet. So it's it's up to the individual to, and it is going to be likely very individual too, right? So yeah, that being said, there was a recent, there's actually today there was a new paper that came out by Oyvind Sandbeck and the Norwegian group, and it was talking about the performance factors that went into, I think it was at least 50 gold medalists in the Norwegian ski organization, and it was really this over time from junior to senior. There's continual progression of sport specific training in terms of the volume and the duration. So we can't argue that at the highest level that cross country skiing volume will increase year after year in these Olympians. They're handling more and more, but it's not an overnight thing. You don't go out and start skiing the largest amount on day one when you're 15-year-old. That's not wise, and you're gonna fall by the wayside. But you add on intelligently year after year to that. So yeah, I think it's up to every individual. So there's certain specific sports where maybe the rule doesn't apply, but then we've talked about the swimming example, where traditionally we think that we have to swim 30, 40K in a week, which just incredible amounts. But that's not necessarily the case, and this was the story that's really emerging. So the guy's name is Kyle Chalmers, and he's an Aussie, and he's multi gold medalist, and he's being trained by Jamie Stanley, who's the same hit science author I was saying in the marathon, and also the cycling chapter. And Jamie is just going a completely opposite approach. And Kyle is saying publicly just how he can't believe how different he's training. He's training kind of more like a cross training and like a triathlete, and he's loving his training again. He almost retired, but then he met Jamie, and it reversed he found his love again for the sport, and now he's hitting personal bests over all of his Olympic golds that he was hitting before. So it can rejuvenate an athlete. So yeah, I think we don't know necessarily just how good it can be.
So how do we want to end this episode? So Marjaana has talked about the value of doing something that you love. Paul, you just talked about the value of bringing back some joy with the cross training. What else can we add to this?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is that general theme that both MJ and I express around that joy it's almost kind of coming back to balance. Is that the cross training is the opener to achieving your balance in life, whereas traditionally all of us type A individuals, we're going in one direction, we're doing one sport, we're all notoriously, and it's like the top ones do the most, and that's how I started, right? I was going to win Ironman, and I was going to do it by training the hardest, and I was going to train the longest. And of course it didn't work, right? And it doesn't work for anyone. So you got to train smarter, and then cross training is kind of part of that overall intelligence that you're adding to your program. And it kind of comes back to, it's a whole lot more enjoyable when you do have this. So I think that's the general gist.
I think that's what we can hang our hats on, is that we don't lose anything. We still gain fitness. We still maintain fitness, and we have a lot of fun doing things, especially like I can't wait for the snow to start coming so we can go ski. But there are other ways of doing cross training besides cross country skiing. There's a lot of things you can do in the gym, in the pool, out on the trail running in the fall. It's a beautiful time of year to try something different. So
yeah. Can I add one more thing, Paul? It's just
do.
and this is just coming to me as we're talking, and it comes back to the joy. But we've talked before about heart rate variability in lots of different episodes, and we've talked about how you only adapt when your HRV is balanced or increasing in general, right? And Alan Cousins has a great tweet where he talks about that. It brings that balance, and it probably brings your autonomic balance. So it enables you to when you're training, you're actually going to adapt to that training. So it's joy. Joy is something we should all be seeking. We should only be training as part of something that is going to bring us joy, bring us energy in our lives, and we'll adapt accordingly if we have that. So yeah, just thinking on the fly. But I've really enjoyed this episode. Yeah, really cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening today to the Athletes Compass podcast. Take a moment now, subscribe, share, and let's keep navigating this endurance adventure together. Improve your endurance training with the science-based training platform Athletica, and join the conversation at the Athletica Forum. For Marjaana Rakai and Dr. Paul Laursen, I'm Paul Warloski, and this has been the Athletes Compass podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Athletes Compass podcast, your North Star through the sometimes complicated world of training for your endurance sport. We appreciate your comments and training questions and your 5-star reviews. For a deeper dive into the science of endurance sports, listen to the Training Science podcast and check out the adaptive AI training platform Athletica.ai. Thanks for listening.